Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Well, our political correspondent Michael Crick joins us now. Michael, there's been a lot of talk about Theresa May going after Labour supporters, but her pitch must also have been to the 4 million UKIP voters.
Undoubtedly. I mean, not just in what she's been saying this week in Birmingham, but over the last few weeks. On grammar schools, a major UKIP policy. On Europe, on immigration. On presenting her party as the party for workers. Workers who feel that they're badly paid and that their jobs are insecure. Theresa May is undoubtedly moving into UKIP territory.
Extraordinary 24 hours. I mean, the leader of UKIP, Diane James, resigns after 18 days. What's going on?
Well, I think it's partly the problems of any institution that's been run by one individual for 20 years. And that individual, let's be frank about it, Nigel Farage was a dictator. He managed to rule UKIP ruthlessly. And Diane James, I think, has realised that she wasn't really qualified for the job. And this is a party where the infighting, the smearing of opponents, the scandal is on a scale that I've never known in any other political party in 36 years of reporting politics in this country. Diane James wasn't up to dealing with that. I think one has to wonder whether anybody could run UKIP at the moment, whether UKIP has almost become ungovernable after the demise of a woman who will go down as the shortest lived political leader in modern British history. She beat 4 rivals for the top job with almost as many votes as them combined. But less than 3 weeks later, Diane James has gone. Critical colleagues say she never really wanted the job, but was simply put up to it by Nigel Farage. In Strasbourg last night, Diane James issued a statement saying she didn't have the support of her UKIP MEP colleagues and party officers to carry out the changes she wanted. Why are you not doing any media interviews? But unlike Nigel Farage, James seemed to hate media questions. And one member of the UKIP National Executive told me she'd yet to meet the NEC and it was impossible for them to contact her. One of Diane James's first acts as UKIP leader was a reconciliation at the UKIP conference with the party's only MP, Douglas Carswell. Then, in Wales last week, she declared another former Tory MP, the controversial Neil Hamilton, who was now undisputed UKIP leader in Wales.
Who is the leader of UKIP in Wales?
Well, I understand it's Neil Hamilton at the moment.
So, Mr Farage's appointment of Nathan Gill has gone now.
Well, I tell you what, why don't you direct that question to...
You're the leader.
No, I've been invited down and I'm the UKIP party leader. You just asked your questions about UKIP group in Wales. Here's the gentleman you need to talk to.
Was the point I was
No,
making.
there you go.
Nigel Farage, no friend of Carswell or Hamilton, is said to have been furious. So who will UKIP pick instead? Stephen Woolfe, disqualified last time because his nomination form arrived 15 minutes late, this afternoon said he was standing again.
Well, the key decision is over the last week or two, I've been inundated in my mailbox from members of the party all over the country who said, Stephen, we want to see you in a key role in Diane's kind of government in a sense. And of course, it's not a government, but in terms of her leadership team. And of course, now they've stepped aside, they're all now doing exactly the same again, saying, please stand.
Also, perhaps Suzanne Evans, a big UKIP voice in the media, who couldn't stand in the summer because she'd been suspended then for alleged disloyalty towards UKIP colleagues. Yet in northern working-class communities like Moston in East Manchester, UKIP could conceivably replace Labour, just as the SNP did in Scotland. Because UKIP did quite well round here, didn't they, in the local elections?
Yeah, they certainly did, yeah, and it's no surprise. Really, because this place has changed like you won't believe.
Do you think UKIP could take over from Labour in an area like this?
Oh, without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt.
Do you think they could replace Labour round here?
I do, yeah, eventually, yeah.
Why is that?
Because of all the foreigners.
With Theresa May also making a grab for working class votes, this is no time for UKIP to be leaderless.
Well, earlier I spoke to the party's interim leader, Nigel Farage, and I began by asking him what exactly is going on with the UKIP leadership.
Well, Diane James was elected leader 18 days ago, but her position was never verified at the Electoral Commission, so she never actually legally became the leader. So despite the fact I thought I'd escaped, I've been dragged back, and right now I am technically and legally still the leader of UKIP. We will have another leadership election, and by the end of November, early December, we will have a new leader of UKIP. And whilst today's not the greatest of days, it's not a disaster. At worst, it's just cost us a few weeks.
Who are you backing?
Well, I didn't back anybody last time round, and it's not my intention to back anybody this time round. You know, UKIP's got to move beyond me, and people have got to make their own minds up as to who the best choice is. I'm just sorry that Diane James climbed the hill and didn't like the view very much.
That's what's happened. She didn't like the view. You're saying she got there and thought, oh, I can't do this?
Well, I think she was a bit surprised at the role itself. I think she was shocked by the hostility she was met with at a London train station. And I think realised that doing this job, it's not just a job, it's a complete way of life. It's the sort of job you wouldn't really wish on your own worst enemy.
Were you cross with Diane James that she'd had this rapprochement with Douglas Carswell? That's one of the rumours.
No, I mean, look, you know, I think the truth about Douglas Carswell came out last weekend. Frankly, he spent over the last 15, 16 months trying to neutralise and divide UKIP. I feel some sadness for Diane James is not going to affect you know, the fact that UKIP in the opinion polls last weekend was standing at 16%, and there are still millions of people out there that want to vote for us.
Right, but Theresa May is clearly making a big land grab today with her speech. She's going for the same people who voted UKIP or voted for Brexit.
Well, it was a remarkable speech by Theresa May. I mean, it made you realise the extent to which UKIP hadn't just pushed for, gained and helped to win a referendum, but how actually we've changed the centre of gravity of British politics. Virtually everything she said in that speech are things that I've said to the UKIP conference over the course of the last 5 or 6 years. The real question is she going to deliver as Prime Minister in the way that she failed to deliver as Home Secretary?
I don't believe you've had enough of politics, Mr. Farage. You're persuadable, aren't you?
Well, I've had enough. No, I'm not, I promise.
Well, you're the one who's got the
I've had
answers.
enough of party politics.
You're the one who's providing the leadership today.
I've stepped into the breach because it's my duty to help the party, and I will do that until the end of November when we get a new leader. I'm not walking away
Why
from
does
politics
it stop
completely.
being your
I'm not
duty to
retiring.
lead? When you are clearly head and shoulders above anybody else in your party, isn't it your duty to stay?
Well, let's see who emerges. I mean, do remember, I have given this party the best part of my adult life. I think I've more than done my bit. I'm more than prepared to stick around and support whoever the new leader is. I'm just not prepared to go on doing this 24/7 for the next few years.
Nigel Farage, leader of UKIP, again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You couldn't really make it up, could you?
So just 24 hours ago, Stephen Woolfe was declaring his candidacy for the leadership of the UK Independence Party. But tonight, he's recovering in hospital following an altercation at a meeting in Strasbourg with fellow UKIP MEPs. It's reported that he was involved in a confrontation with a colleague over his admission that he had considered defecting to the Conservative Party. UKIP's interim leader, Nigel Farage, has tonight announced an inquiry into the incident, as Jackie Long now reports.
UKIP's Stephen Woolfe, here with the leader he's determined to succeed. The party's leadership battle has been mired in controversy. In recent days, it's bordered on farce. Diane James, who won the first leadership contest, stood down after just 18 days. Then this morning, UKIP's dramas took a more serious turn. Just before lunchtime, Stephen Woolfe collapsed on one of the walkways in the European Parliament building in Strasbourg. It happened after he'd been at a meeting of party MEPs supposed to clear the air, but which ended in a fight between him and a colleague.
What I gather is there was an altercation, a dispute in the UKIP group meeting, and one of the MEPs threw a punch and hit Mr. Woolfe, who's in hospital now. Mr. Woolfe banged his head on a metal pole, apparently, but appeared to be okay at that point. carried on with his work, attended the votes here in the plenary, and about an hour after the incident, having left the plenary and walking across to go back to his office, he collapsed.
The meeting to clear the air followed an admission by Mr Woolfe yesterday, the same day he announced his second attempt at the leadership, that he'd been considering defecting to the Tories. Words were exchanged between him and fellow UKIP MEP Mike Hookham. Sources say the two men took the dispute outside and claim blows were exchanged. Mr Woolfe fell and hit his head. After collapsing, Mr Woolfe was taken to hospital where his condition was reported as serious. By this afternoon, he had regained consciousness and released this statement.
The CT scan has shown that there is no blood clot in the brain. At the moment, I'm feeling brighter, happier and smiling as ever. I would like everyone to know that the parliamentary staff, the UKIP MEPs with me and hospital staff have been brilliant.
This evening, Nigel Farage, who stepped back in yesterday as interim leader, visited Mr Woolfe.
He's been through quite a big shock today. As for the events that led up to it, well, it's two grown men getting involved in an altercation. It's not very seemly behaviour, but I'm not today going to get involved in the blame game and name names and say who did what, but it shouldn't have happened.
But while Mr Woolfe may be recovering well, there are questions about what damage has been done to his leadership bid and the wider party, riven by divisions, even those within it, accusing it of ugly internal politics.
I'm saying that there is a growing verbal violence which has been allowed to fester, and it does go right to the top, I'm afraid. You know, I've held my peace on this for a very, very long time, and I think that what has happened today in the European Parliament demands that I should now speak in this way, because clearly nothing is going to be done to stamp this out unless public pressure is put on the party chairman to do something about it.
Mike Hookham couldn't be contacted all day, but an aide told reporters he insists it was a verbal altercation and denies punching his fellow MEP.
Jackie Long, and our political correspondent Michael Crick is with me. Michael, do we really know what happened?
I don't think we do, actually. I'm not 100% convinced there was actually a physical fight between these men. I think there probably was, but I'm not convinced. And indeed, it's interesting how people keep using the phrase altercation.
We do know he was taken to hospital.
We know he was taken to hospital,
brain injury.
Indeed, but we also are told that he fell subsequent to this altercation. And Mr Hookham's spokeswoman has said tonight, Mike did not touch him. And a friend of Mr Hookham has texted me in the last few minutes saying bootnecks, which is a term for Royal Marines, bootnecks don't slap people and a slap does not cause a bleed on the brain. And he would have a mark on his face if he'd been punched hard enough to achieve half-body paralysis. And it's also interesting the way in which Mr Hookham has not issued a direct statement himself. He has not apologised in any way, hasn't expressed any concern for Mr Woolfe's well-being. And the other interesting thing is that nobody's actually come forward and say, yes, I saw the fight, and this is what happened. There don't seem to have been any eyewitnesses to a fight, so it's still mysterious.
What are the implications for UKIP?
Well, I think in any normal political party, these two men would be in big trouble, you know, arranging to go out and have a fight outside and hitting each other, as appears to have happened. But UKIP is not a normal political party. You never. This may actually boost the reputations and careers of both men in a strange way. Indeed, a UKIP senior UKIP figure was saying to me today that this will go down well in the kind of working class communities that we're trying to target. I mean, it seems an extraordinary thing to say. But remember what happened to the famous Prescott, with the famous Prescott punch in the 2001 election, I think it was, when John Prescott punched a protester and his popularity soared. So the implications of this may actually boost Mr Woolfe and Mr Hookham, or one or the other.
Michael Crick. Well, I'm joined now from Washington by Raheem Kassam. He's the editor of Breitbart, the London website, and he's former chief advisor to Nigel Farage. He announced last night that he would also be a contender for the UKIP leadership. It gives political infighting a new twist, doesn't it? I mean, actual fighting. I mean, amazing circumstances seem to have unfolded in Strasbourg. What do you make of it?
Well, I think it is a dark day for the MEPs, for the UKIP MEPs. I don't think anybody can be proud, nor should anybody be boasting about this or thinking that this is going to somehow endear people to UKIP. I would also say, however, that it's not a solitary UKIP thing. You remember the Labour Party MP Eric Joyce in 2012 had this. You've had members of the Conservative Party engaging in fisticuffs in Parliament as well. These things can happen. It's a very human thing to happen. When you don't have a leader, when you don't necessarily have a raison d'etre, when things are a little bit in existential crisis, then passions can overflow. And I think both of these two men, again, to echo what Michael said, we don't know truly what happened, but I think both of these two men will look back at this and think that didn't really reflect well on me or my party.
But then we have Edward Lee from inside the party saying, you know, Neil Hamilton rather, saying he truly is a creature from the gutter who would do anything to get his mug on the screens. This is talking about, who is he talking about? This is Aaron Banks talking about Neil Hamilton. I mean, this sort of language is absolute. I mean, actually, there's so much bad language between so many different people. There are so many different factions. How do you ever put this thing together again?
Well, I don't think there are so many different factions. I think there are two very distinct factions inside UKIP at the moment. And the point is this, you know, I've been saying all day, and I will continue to say, that actually I am guilty of engaging in this kind of internecine warfare as well. But if today has taught us anything, is that we need to take a step back. We need to reflect very seriously, not just on this incident and what it means, but we need to reflect on who we are as a political party, what we are as a movement, what we stand for, what we're going to do going forward, and start positively campaigning on those issues and remembering that we're all on the same side. If you do want to solve this problem, then you have to say to the people who aren't UKIPers through and through, who have done things that have been completely contrary to what the party has stood for so long, you have to say to them, look, thank you for being in this party, but I'm afraid your services are no longer required.
Well, the trouble surely with the party is it's extremely male. There's been some very violent rhetoric. We have Neil Hamilton saying it goes right to the very top. I don't know what he means by that. Is that Nigel Farage? Is he a brutal and verbally abusive man?
No, I think when Stephen Woolfe is sitting in a hospital, and by the way, you know, I want to take this opportunity to wish him the speediest recovery because he is a good personal friend of mine, as well as an excellent candidate and MEP. But when Neil Hamilton uses this incident, when Stephen Woolfe is laying in a hospital, to attack the party leader, to attack different figures in the party, well, this is the exact problem we're talking about, isn't it? I think, you know, we just need to take a step back.
He's not
Maybe
alone,
let's all
exactly.
get around a table.
Let me quote your main funder. We have here Aaron Banks saying, if Neil Hamilton and Douglas Caswell remain in the party, then I'll be leaving UKIP.
Yeah, and I sympathise with what Aaron is saying because the two of those people don't see eye to eye with him, and there have been lots of bust-ups and disputes between them over the last year especially. So I sympathise with what Aaron is saying. What I don't necessarily sympathise with, especially today, is the way he is saying it. Again, this is an open call to all UKIPers out there. Either get together or get lost.
OK, well, let me put you a last brief question, and that is this. This is really an existential crisis, as you pointed out at the beginning, but it's an existential crisis caused by the fact that UKIP doesn't have any point anymore. You've now got a major party doing what UKIP was offering, which is trying to get Britain out of Europe.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment to make, but that is not fair if you look at the party's manifesto from 2015, how much it has influenced the government on issues like grammar schools. You know, UKIP may well have been a single-issue party once upon a time. It is not a single-issue party anymore, and it actually represents people way across the country who feel that they can't vote for the Conservative Party and they can't vote for the Labour Party because they've been left behind by Conservative and Labour governments. And therefore, UKIP does have a serious raison d'etre, and we need to find it and project it.
Well, Rahim, thank you very much indeed for joining us, and we'll have to see whether there is a party at the end of it all. Thank you very much. The UK Independence Party has been plunged into new turmoil after one of its leadership contenders had to be rushed to hospital following a clash with a party colleague. We're joined now live from Bristol by the UKIP donor and co-founder of Leave UK, Aaron Banks. Aaron Banks, good evening and thank you for joining us. You've put out a very strong statement today for naming people. Neil Hamilton, for example, spewing his bile, you say, before anyone who knew if Stephen, the injured man MEP today, was going to be OK. He truly is a creature from the gutter who'll do anything to get his mug on the screens. You also attack Douglas Carswell as well. And, I mean, surely what's happened now? You're about to take your money away, aren't you?
Well, evening, John. It sounded like you were having a punch-up in the studio in the last story. Sorry, can you just repeat the question?
Sorry, the question is, what is happening to your party? They're tearing themselves apart, and you're doing quite a lot of the tearing.
Well, I think there's a very small minority of the party that have had a problem, and it's the Hamilton and Carswells of this world. I think the party is quite united. I think what happened in Brussels is unfortunate, but I think to go onto the airwaves and sort of make fun of Stephen when he's in a hospital bed is just pretty unacceptable.
Well, why did you say what you said about Neil Hamilton and Douglas Carswell?
Well, because I think they're utterly reprehensible people. Certainly Hamilton today, the comments on the TV were totally unacceptable. I mean, someone's just been taken to hospital as unwell, was potentially dying, and then to go on and make fun of that person is pretty horrible.
But you're one of the absolute key funders of the party. You must be wondering whether your money's now been spent and it's time to move on. Are you thinking perhaps of stopping funding UKIP?
Well, look, I'm not at the moment. I think if you look at the Labour Party, it's got its problems as well. There's a lot of trouble. A lot of people in the Labour Party think their party have been taken over by a certain section of it. And I certainly think that what we've got to do is reclaim the kind of sensible UKIP agenda, and I think we can do great things against the Labour Party. I'm not that fussed about it, but I do think that what happened today was unfortunate. I think to be making capital out of it or making fun of someone that's ill is pretty horrible.
In your statement today, you say if Neil Hamilton and Douglas Carswell remain in the party and the NEC decide that Stephen Woolfe cannot run for leader, I'll be leaving.
I think that's pretty much it, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. And I do think that this, in a certain sort of way, may bring things to a head. I think that it had to happen that things that have been said have to be said, and I think that there will be a change now.
Aaron Banks, thank you very much indeed for taking time to come and talk to us. Thank you.
I've been getting away